Hi, Bill.
Hello, Linda. How are you?
Good. I got your, let's see, the 2021 Community Needs Assessment that you sent us.
Yeah, I just wanted to show them that there is other surveys and what they look like going around. So,
Right. I was talking to a couple folks, and one of the people said, you have to be careful how you word questions and this and that. And so I just think we need to be careful. Like Dan's, for instance, to me, were long, very kind of complicated almost. Charlene's were pretty straightforward. So maybe somewhere in the middle of those two that they sent. What do you think, John?
Well, good evening, Bill. Good evening, Linda. I'll get into it, Linda.
Okay.
As building surveys is something that I've had a lot of training on now. I do have some comment. I didn't want to provide comments back in the email chain and have this. I would rather have a group discussion on it. So I have some pointers as far as you've got to be very cautious about creating biased questions, leading questions.
Right.
You can't say how bad does Olean suck? You can't ask a question like that, right? Yeah. So you need to present an unbiased approach. I've got a couple examples. I've got Bill's examples that he sent us. So I thought maybe if we just share our screen and the first step too is you have to clearly identify what is the goal of the survey. I'm not saying a survey is a bad idea. It might be very helpful to get some feedback from the community, but what's the goal of it? And so
I'm gonna let Michelle in and Bob ring in.
Okay. No, I agree, John. I think I was talking to Gil just a few minutes ago, and he said the same thing. He said, when you ask questions, you can lead to the answer you want, and you don't want to do that, especially with something, about the community. And I think you pointed out too, it's the way you ask the question.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hello, Michelle. How are you?
Good, how are you, everyone?
Hi, Michelle. How's Arizona?
Good.
Hot?
Hot.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Dan.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Dan.
Hello, how are you?
Bob, are you in a bird cage?
Yeah, I got stuck. It's a porch chair
Oh, okay.
sitting outside.
I was going to say, where did you go? You were just up on Main Street a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
Bob, I got you beat. I'm sitting in sunny Florida, so I got you beat, brother.
Nice.
Michelle might have us all beat, but
Yep,
no.
I do.
Hey, it's sunny here in Olean, so we got 70 degrees.
Oh, it's 70 and sunny. Look at I'm all red. I'm already working on my tan.
So the sun does shine only in it sometimes, huh?
Yep.
All the time.
Only when you're out of town, Dan.
Hey,
Hey, I was on my way back from the casino today, and my car said 74.
hey, I guess
That was
what?
your speed, Linda. That was your speed. That wasn't the temperature.
The sun only shines when I'm out of town. You guys are about to get real cold because I'm on my way back.
Did you get the message that Gary Harvey will not be joining us tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're just
Hi,
waiting.
Chris.
For Colleen then. Hey, Chris.
How's everybody doing?
Good, Chris. How are you?
We're
Good.
good. I don't see Charlene yet.
Right.
That right there is for you, John. That little picture right there, you know.
Where's your speedboat, Dan? Where's the speedboat?
No speedboat, just a little river. I mean, a little lake, maybe some beach, maybe some sun.
Little paradise right there, huh?
Trying to figure out why Olean can't figure out how to make condos down there where they're at.
Well, there was talk once, wasn't there, Bill, about Lake Olean?
Yes. Jeff
Hey, we
Bell,
have
yes,
a riverfront.
yeah,
I remember when we had our, what was it? Oh, the regatta. Remember the regatta we had a few years ago that went down Allegheny River?
yeah, we used to have regattas, actually, not regattas per se, but they used to have a big event. It was all the taverns and bars. They had a flat bottom boat race. It went from
Okay.
the South Union Bridge down to the bridge in Allegheny.
Right.
And it was
Now,
quite, I
a
mean,
few
they would
years
put,
ago.
they would have 30, 40 boats in there and, you know, you had a 6-man crew and you rowed. So it
Yep.
was quite, that went on for years and years and years. And the Silver Slipper was the big winner back then. Eddie Havers was
Wow.
one of him and his brother and some others used to row for the Silver Slipper. And then Lucy Hoffman, who owned the Silver Slipper, she'd have a big party up at her house on just inside the city on Buffalo Street, Buffalo Road.
Wow.
So,
So I
Well,
remember the regatta, and I remember my son-in-law actually had a paddle boat in it. And he had an umbrella and they were drinking beer. They had a good old time.
mhm.
well, I own some of that nice Olean Creek property.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have two of the Olean Creek out my back. I have some of that Creek View property.
See, you could charge an entrance fee. Okay, well, it's 6:32, so why don't we get started? Charlene, hopefully she'll pop in because she was one of the people that sent questions. You know, I was talking to Mayor and John before everybody came on. And one of the things, and I've talked to a couple other folks, and they, tonight I thought we would just go over some of the questions that people submitted. Bill sent us a copy of the 2021 Community Needs Assessment questionnaire they send out. And I think one of the things that I think we need to be cautious of is, you know, why are we doing a survey? What do we hope to gain from the survey? And who's our target audience? And a couple of the things that John brought up, I'm just going to let him share some of his ideas. And the other thing is, I think you need to have questions that aren't leading or that aren't negative. Does that make sense to folks?
Yeah.
Okay, John?
Yeah, thank you, Linda. So I want to thank Dan. I mean, obviously, he and Charlene put a lot of time and effort into coming up with a list of questions. We really, I think it's a great, and here's Charlene, it's a great starting point for us. So as someone who obviously, as I'm doing my dissertation, and I've spent a lot of time learning research and approaches to research. The number one thing they always tell you to start off with is to define a clear goal of what that survey is. And a couple other helpful points as we review Dan's questions, Charlene's comments, and suggestions. We can try to keep all of this in mind and tweak that. So I think we want to get an understanding or a clearer picture of how everyone feels within our community and what they would like to, what everyone would like to see in our community for starters. But we need to define a clear goal of the survey. Additionally, keep the time period short and relevant. Trying to keep the answers and responses short and clear. One thing that we like to use, and thank you, Bill, for sending the examples from the county on to us. We can review those tonight as well. You'll see a lot of times they'll give you a Likert scale responses, meaning you respond 1 through 5, or you respond, something not at all, sometimes moderate. You're usually given a selection, so that way you can kind of analyze the data rather than too many open answered questions. You want to have maybe 1 or 2 open answered questions on a survey. And then, like Linda had pointed out, we all have opinions, and we want to present questions that are not biased or writer bias or researcher bias. So avoiding leading questions, and at the same time avoiding difficult concepts that might be tough for someone to wrap their head around. So those are just some of my quick feedback and responses. And I'm open to any others as well, of course.
And I can tell you from my questions, like I welcome the free feedback from Charlene. Like I just, like when I started my email, I said, like, you guys can word these questions any way you want. Like, these are just my, right? They're just my thoughts. They're like, by no means was I proposing them to say, we should go with these particular ones. Like, so like, I fully expected us to beat them up, you know, come up with what's the best ones to go out with. So you ain't gonna hurt my feelings.
Absolutely.
Right. So, John, can you share your screen on, I know Charlene had sent some, the original questions, and hers are more in the line of giving people choices or.
So Linda, could I suggest something real quick? Just so we can, do you mind if I want to just run through quickly, we don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but I've found a community needs assessment questionnaire that is out there. Now it's very, very detailed. It's on SurveyMonkey, so it's probably more than what we're looking for, as well as the forms that Bill has sent on. And then we can kind of this will give us some ideas as far as what a questionnaire might look like. And then we can dive into what our specific goal is for our survey. So if
you want to share that?
Yep, I'll do that. I don't know if everyone's had an opportunity to, I'm going to share where the emails that Bill sent on. So it looks like there's a community needs assessment that has been provided. This is one of the two that Bill sent on to us. And so obviously this would be, maybe more geared towards an organization, but always trying to gather data and put it into whatever, bucket or category. And typically you start narrow, and as the survey goes on, you become more focused. So, what are leading, to you, in your opinion, what are 5 leading causes of poverty in Cattaraugus County? What are 5 of the most pressing needs of low-income population? And they've got a great list here. And so obviously we could use something like this, tweak it, to be more applicable to what we need. Here is more of that Likert scale that I talked about. Cannot meet needs, meets most of the needs, meets more than all the needs. In terms of services and resources across Cattaraugus County, right? And obviously you guys can read the various different topics. I'm not gonna waste our time going through all of this line by line, but what makes it difficult for people to maintain employment, so on and so forth. And then this is more COVID-19. So that was that. I wanted to share the other one quickly here. So this one, again, more customer-based. Obviously, trying to get an idea, what zip code are you from? So similar, this is more for the customer base rather than organization. So and according to the customer, what are the causes of poverty? What's driving low income? So really, there are really 5 or 6 questions that come out of this. You really, unless you want to put something together that's going to be, now this is going to take somebody 15 or 20 minutes to complete, right? And they're going to need a computer to sit down and do it. And you could get into tons of data, age, demographics, right? How schooling, what type of agencies are you currently using? Are you able to work? If you're unemployed, why are you unemployed? Do you have reliable telephone access? Do you have reliable internet access? I mean, these could be relevant questions for anyone who's in an underrepresented demographic in our community. What's your housing status, right? You could get into racial or ethnic heritage, language, so there's tons and tons of demographic statistics that you could, if you have children or other dependents, what's your family situation? I mean, these are some good, again, I go back to what are we trying to do? And maybe that's where our conversation starts, is what are we trying to gather from our survey? And that can help to tweak and shape the questions that we're asking. So I would ask that question. I don't want to take up more of the time that I already have, but here, and then we can start to dig into some of the questions that Dan and Charlene have kind of presented to us.
Okay. So how about if we tackle the very first question? What is our goal? What are we, what is our main purpose of doing this survey? And what do we want to pull out of people, and either their feelings or how they feel about being underserved, or, I mean, there's a lot of questions, but what do you guys think our goal should be? And it has to be more than just diversity.
I mean, I don't know, I guess I'll say something.
That's okay, go for it.
I think our goal, my goal is, as initially stated, like last time we met, was to figure out whether or not the diverse, the different diverse populations in Olean feel like they're being served, and what services are we lacking, right? What services are we using? What services are we lacking? And how could we better serve them? All the way down from the developmental disabled, to the poor, to the elderly, to the African American community, to the Hispanics and Hispanic community and everybody else. Like, what are they using? What do they want to see from the community? I think we have to get to what do they want, right? And that's my main goal. And not to say that that's the group's main goal, but that's my main goal. Is I want to see what is it that we're lacking, and where can we grow from their perspective? Because we can sit around here and talk about it all day long, but they're living it, right? They're out there. So I want to hear from them.
Okay. I think one of the things that you just touched on would be, do you feel comfortable in Olean? Do you have a fear of not, feeling welcome or comfortable in your community?
I from the word fear, because I know a lot of minorities that don't feel welcome, but they ain't scared.
Right. True.
So I think, when I just my head keeps going back to how can we get better? How can we do better, right? And part of doing better is recognizing what we're doing good and recognizing where we got to grow.
And
So,
I mean, I think when Linda said fear, because like the current situation with the Asian community, so they may have a fear of not being comfortable in our community. So like in regards to that, we do kind of need to address that as well, because we want them to feel comfortable, because they may not feel safe. So that kind of needs to be addressed as well, just to get a basis for like all minorities.
Right.
And I know what you're saying, Danny, like there are minorities who aren't fearful, but we may have others who are. And because Linda had made a statement at our last meeting about someone from the Asian community who reached out to her with concerns. So we can like address them and help them as well.
And I think it's a matter of wording, right? We're playing wording logistics here because I just don't particularly care for the word fear. I think there's other ways to address that other than using the word fear.
Right, but I'm still saying somebody still may have that uncomfortable feeling. So somehow we need to use a different type of word to address.
Right. And I like what John just put up. How comfortable do you feel? Maybe how comfortable do you feel living in Olean? You know, living in our community. You know, and there's a lot of ways. I mean, if you were asked that, how would you answer it?
My
Well,
first question is how comfortable, what does that mean? Fear, I understand. Comfortable can
Too
be a lot
broad?
of different things to me. So that's just me.
Okay.
I worry that comfort could become code for, like, do you have, like, can you afford a nice house? Can you afford, like,
Right.
it might not get into like someone's experience with, like, feeling like they're represented, feeling like they have a voice in the city. So I would agree with Charlene that I'm iffy on comfortable, but I like the message there is what I can get behind.
how welcoming do you feel, or welcomed, or something like that? Because fear to me has different levels as well, right? Like, I'm fearful of some things, but that doesn't mean, you know, that's, I can see that question getting answered in a couple different ways, depending on who you ask. So,
Right. True.
This might be a little bit, away from what you guys are talking about, but we use the word livable a lot, when we're doing city planning, and is it livable for you, as at least from a city perspective? Are we providing services that make people comfortable, that bring people together and connect them, and low to low income, walkability is a big thing that we work on a lot because that connects communities together. And, we're trying to break down barriers like our highways that go through town. So, some of those are the issues that at least, we think about a lot here from a transportation perspective, at least in city government. So that's my thoughts
I
on it.
think the word that comes up also a lot when you're talking about government is your quality of life. What is your quality of life? So there's lots of words out there that fit, but and I think if you had 10 people ask, read the same question, they're going to answer it 10 different ways.
I think we all agree with the concept of the question. We just need to get the wording down, so, we can do that as we, review it further. But, we could spend an hour talking about wording, right? But if we could just get some basis of some questions down that we all agree to the basic concept of the question, we can wordsmith it later.
I mean, Dan, I even like, I even like the word that you have in your first question, a belonging. Maybe that's different than comfortable. What is the level of belonging you feel in your community, or something to that effect? I agree. I think we're all on the same page. It's just trying to find that way to word it.
Right.
So are we
I'm just
moving?
reading there.
So to just try to go back to the goal of the survey is to something to the effect of, right? Any survey we're trying to assess, did I spell that right? Assess the
How about the level of community feeling, or
I would like to assess the level of what minorities and underprivileged individuals feel like the city does well, and then what the city can do better, right? I would like to hit on them two topics, and maybe I'm off base, right? And that's okay if I am. It's not the first time today I will be off base, but that's kind of where my head goes.
That's kind of, to me, that's kind of, and I think you've got a point there. It's kind of just your basic question, you know, what are we doing well? And what do you see the city of Olean with a potential to do things better? And what are those things? You know, whether it's housing, transportation, and you could come up with a whole laundry list of things, but.
So I'm thinking assess the climate of our community and then maybe in our questions be more pointed in what we're trying to, you know, the detail of, comfortable, fear, accepted, livable, whatever, but maybe the climate of our community.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, and it could be that simple, Charlene. I like that, to assess the climate of our community.
Charlene, I love it. Charlene, I love it.
Yeah, because it's not directing you in a certain direction. Like John had pointed out earlier, sometimes you can ask questions and they lead people, you know, right where you want them to go. And no, I think saying, you know, the climate, that's more broad.
No, I like that. Yeah.
And I'm wondering if we can take the questions or the comments that we've already made and tie them into the climate of our community so that so the 20 minutes we just spent on these questions doesn't go by the wayside. So it's not wasted effort because it's a lot of good information that I think can serve us well in what we're trying to do.
I like that a lot too. I like the word community better than city in a way, just because, I mean, the city is a big cog, you know, as far as the public sector. Maybe you've got your public questions, but you've also got, you know, you've got the faith-based, you know, around the city. I mean, that's a huge cog of the community as well. And, you know, there could be questions related to some of those other facets. It's not just targeted towards city unless that's what the goal is in the first place, but just a thought.
Bob, I think the goal was the community as a whole. It wasn't really ever really directed towards what the city's doing or not doing. It was what the community as a whole, what we had as a community as a whole, with the city obviously being a big piece of that, right?
Sure. Great.
Yeah. You know, with any survey, it's one thing to collect the data, right? So it's one thing for us to assess the climate of our community, but we hope to get some action items out of this assessment. We hope to be able to walk away with things that we can, as a community, but also, I mean, I'm myself, Linda, I mean, obviously the mayor, you know, we're a city organization. So I'm also concerned about what can the city as a municipality do to improve some of these concerns of our community members.
Well, John, I know you're doing your dissertation, but from my experience with the survey, every question drives an action item. Either you do more of what's working in that particular question, and whether that means the city puts more money behind it or expands their services, or you get better in the questions that you don't do so well in, right? And again, each one of them, each question that we write down, we should be ready to have an action item after it, right? So they should all mean something, right? So at the end of it, we should be able to look at the data that we get from the survey and be ready to say, okay, question one, here's where we shook out. What's our action item? Is it positive or negative, right? But still, even if it's a positive, it should draw an action. Because you want to build on what you're doing well, and you also want to fix what you're not doing so well, right? As a community as a whole, right? So that in the city reaching out to different parts of organizations in the city. What if we say the developmental disability aren't served well? Well, it would be crazy for us not to sit on that data and not have a meeting within tandem, right? So I think that's an action item. Like we can draw action off of whatever data comes out, however it shakes out.
So I have an idea, heaven help us all. So I'm wondering if, because on the survey that we saw, the community action survey, whatever, I like the content of questions 4, 5, 6, and 7. Primarily, I think it was 6. I think it listed a bunch of things that might fit into what we're talking about, and maybe save us some time creating, reinventing the wheel. Thank you for putting that up there so I can see what I'm talking about.
Just,
Yeah, I think it's question number 6. Now it's on,
which one were we talking about? Which
I
survey?
think it's the one the mayor sent, John.
Okay.
yeah.
And then I know we're already past that, but how about, instead of using the word fear, how about a sense of security? Like, do you have a sense of security? That's just something that popped in my head, so I wanted to share it.
Let me pull this up.
Yeah, I think that's good, Michelle.
Was it this, Charlene?
Yes.
Yes,
that's number
because, you
6.
know, that covers a lot of things. Maybe we could, you know, redesign, take some stuff out and put something else in. But like halfway down, safety and crime prevention, that's probably a real concern for, let's go back to, you know, Asian people in our community, but there might be, you know, others too.
Right. I think another good question on there is safe and affordable housing. You can have affordable housing, but if you're in a neighborhood that you're hearing gunshots, you don't feel safe. So there's some really good choices here.
What does everyone think about that?
I thought that was from my quick glance at it, I thought it was a great survey. I wouldn't mind stealing some of them questions and, like Charlene said, using them. Why recreate it? I guess, it's already there.
Each year, Community Action puts out a survey like this. And maybe I'll contact them tomorrow and see if we can get the results of the last survey they did and share that so you can see how it comes out. And then we can move forward with what questions we want to use. Yeah, it is done throughout Cattaraugus County.
How does it get distributed, Bill? Do you know?
They distribute it, they say on their web, they'll distribute it, SurveyMonkey. They also do it on their website. They send it out to different organizations and people throughout. But you can also get a hard copy too that you can fill out.
Yep.
A lot of it's done electronically, but they do have it, and they have a lot of organizations that they service and they get it out that way. So it's
I would love to see them results, Bill, but I'm going to go back to the conversation we had last meeting. Is I want to make sure that when we do our survey that we're hitting the people that we feel like we need to hit, and we're confident that the data that we're getting back is the data that we want based on, the populations that we want to hit. So I would love to see where we stack up, where their data is and where ours comes out.
That's a really great topic. Like, public outreach is very tricky, and I guess the politicians among us know, like, going door to door and getting, talking to people, or, when we try and sell our projects, we're going to the farmer market, we're going to other places. It's really hard to get that right demographic that you want. It takes brainstorming and a lot of work. So it's delicate.
Right. That reminds me, when we wanted to do things uptown, different projects, we would have meetings at the John Ash Center, and everybody had a sticker, and you took it up and you put it at your high priority and low priority. I mean, it's pretty basic, but it really gives you a lot of feedback. So I think I agree with Dan. I think if we're going to do something, we need to get back information that we can take and it's usable. It's not just, something that's already out there through a different agency.
I was just trying to make a point that you could see how, when they did it, what information they
Right.
got back in that. I'm not saying that that's what we should, we should use. I just
Right.
wanted to make that point, that you could get an idea of how many surveys they got back, or the percentages and stuff, so.
In Bill, I would love to see that. I would love to see the numbers. I would love to see the results of their survey, how it actually shook out per their questions, because I think that would be great data. Like if we use questions 6 through 9, how did their surveys come back compared to our questions 6 through 9, right? And I think that would be really good data to look at. I'm not against looking at it. I'm not against any of that. I think the more data you have, the better off you are.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other way to look at it is when you get the data back, say you just take 2 or 3 of the choices on page 6 and just go deeper into those. That could be your starting point, and go deeper into a select population, and get more than just, I have high needs, or no, my needs are met. Just focus more on a select few. Do you know what I'm saying?
And I think that is where getting some of the data from them could be helpful, because if they are already identified that 2 or 3 things are like an area that needs some improvement, like maybe we could get more information on what specifically needs to be improved.
Right.
I'm all for whatever questions we want to use. I just know that we have to put a survey together at some point. And I kind of feel like we keep getting bogged down. I don't know if anybody feels that way. Maybe it's me that's bogging it down. I don't know, but I just kind of feel like we keep going back to the same thing.
Yeah.
Like we got one question.
Right. I think, whenever you have a group of people, I think you try to flush out what's going to work for you and what's not. And I think everybody's comments so far have made me look at different things. And I think, going back to the beginning, I think we have to keep it simple. I think we have to keep it short. It would be good to have some of that information that community action has taken in, and just, like I said, focus in on just a couple areas. But I think, people don't want you to hand them 6 pages of something and say, hey, in your spare time, could you fill this out? I just think it needs to be condensed, and not complicated. These folks don't have BS degrees, they're just basic people. And I think sometimes people are handed things and the whole thing is way over their head. Some people they don't read, they can't read. So I think we have to be sensitive to those folks too. I remember I was discharging a new mom, and I asked her, so are you okay with everything on your discharge sheet? And she looked at me like, what are you talking about? And then I realized she couldn't read, and there are a lot of people in our community that fit that, that, I don't know, class or whatever. But so I think we have to be sensitive to that too.
Chris, based on your guys' surveys that you guys do at Bonus, what's the average like page and a half?
It really depends on what type of survey we're trying to do. Like I don't see anything larger than 20-25 questions, especially if we're going like door to door, face to face.
That's been my experience as well. And nothing more than 25 questions, nothing more than a page and a half.
But I would make it even shorter for those, like if we are relying on like in-person interactions to get data, like that 20-25 is good if I'm going to sit down at my computer and click through a few. But you keep it going quickly if you're doing a face-to-face interview.
What would you recommend for like your face-to-face? I mean, I ask because I know you have a lot of experience in creating these things and rolling these things out.
I mean, I would say 10 or less.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
I mean, I think 5 also would be good if we just need to get to the meat of like whatever we want to use.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess because there's so many things that we want to cover, I think that's why our discussions are taking so long, because we all have our different point of view. But, and if we're doing this, going door to door, doing this face to face, then I say like 5 questions probably. And we have to also take into account if they're going to want to answer our questions when we go to their houses too. So,
Mhm.
Right, like, we're gonna ask like income requirements? I mean, how do you distinguish and, ask race and demographics and things? I mean, I assume that would be one of the important things to start off with, but so not everybody wants to answer that. I've done surveys like that too, and, maybe 50% of people will share that type of information, but just throwing that out there.
Mhm.
I really
That's a
like
good point.
Charlene's wording on but like, do you feel comfortable sharing your blank with me? Like, I really liked that wording because it doesn't imply that they're necessarily going to do it. Like, for example, she said, like, do you feel comfortable sharing your race or racial identity with me?
You're right. Not everybody might feel comfortable doing that.
And I liked what Michelle said about, the 5 questions, because depending upon, when you ask me, most of the time, I don't like people knocking on my door asking me questions about anything. I got things to do, nothing. Don't bother me with that mess. So I think 5 questions, if we can get 5 good, solid questions, that would be to our advantage. And then, that's just enough to get somebody talking, where we could maybe have a backup, 3 to 5 questions. And if somebody wants to engage in a conversation, then we can get, solicit more information, or maybe even ask them after the 5, would you feel like answering a couple more questions? And then they can say, yes or no.
And I think that, and this is just my feeling on the situation, we can agree or disagree on it, is I think 5 to 10 questions is appropriate. Let's hit what we need. And then let's agree as a group, maybe, that if we need a follow-up survey from them, we'll use the data that we gather from the 5 to 10 to figure out what the follow-up is, right? And maybe the answers to them 5 to 10 questions lead you down a path that will develop your next survey for you, based on the data that you have. And I could be completely off base or wrong about that, but usually I'm a firm believer in let the data take you down the road that it's going to take you down, and you just follow the road. So if it's telling us that we need to survey in another direction after the 5 to 10, then let's go in that other direction and go ahead and put another 5-question survey out there, and get down into a little bit more of the meat, right? But I'm all for a 5 or 10 question survey, real quick, real simple, in, out.
Yep.
You'll draw more people.
Yep. And when you knock on someone's door, it's very easy. You might ask a question or two, and then all of a sudden they take you to another part of their life. And I think sometimes you learn more just listening to them than asking them, additional questions. So I think you have to be prepared for that too.
So what are the questions?
So do you want to go through these questions and see which ones that we can kind of target? John has some questions up.
I was just jotting stuff down, just to, I think, get a conversation going. I think 10 questions is probably ideal. And so however we want to word it, but I do think that's a good area to ask is the sense of belonging or comfort level or the secure, whatever, however we feel it's best worded, I don't care. But I think if we have a list of resources and services and assessing those similar to the one the county does, I think that would be certainly an area that we should include. So I'll just drive, you guys comment. I mean, there's certainly a list of other questions here we can pick from.
So we're talking about having a list of services that you know, basically the city offers, because that's the data that we're after, right? I think I agree with that 100%, but shouldn't we also maybe follow that up with a question with a list of services, maybe, or services or things, right, that the city doesn't necessarily offer regularly, and allow them to say what would they like to see more of, or just see something or even more of that particular thing. I'll give you a prime example. Live music. I don't know, maybe they circle that, and it'll give us an opportunity to look at the data and say, here's what the people want to see more of out of the city, right? And here's the services that they're using, and here's the things that they want to see more of out of the city. And that data set could drive a variety of other decisions later on down the road. It's my thought, if we're going to give them a list of stuff that they are currently using, then let's ask them for a list of stuff that they would like to see.
So should that be an open-ended question, or it's tough? How do you what type of list do you pull together of services that we don't necessarily provide? Is that something that is left as an open-ended question? No. What would you like to see in Olean?
Yeah, well, I think that we should do the same thing as we do with services, and we should have like I don't know, maybe this group can come up with a list of them and get them back to you, because I don't think we're going to do it tonight because we keep spinning, but come up with a list and get them back to you, and have them pick certain things. Like, do you want to see more live events? Would you like to see more hours at the, you know, whatever that list is comprised of, and I'm not going to sit here and try to comprise it, whatever that comprised of, then we would give them that list plus maybe a box for other, and you just write it in, you know. But I think that's a two-way question. That's a two-way street, right?
I'll share some of the public outreach we've done through, you know, myself and community development and the mayor's office. I'll share some of that. We've been doing that over the past few years, and I mean, we only get, you know, we don't get a huge amount of people to come out to these, but they're at least prepared, and you know, they're usually categorized, right? Like entertainment is one and transportation is another, and then you kind of go from there. You could pick specific bullets or specific discussion points, but I can dig those up and get everybody's thoughts on them.
Thanks, Bob. I think that'd be helpful just to narrow that list down.
Yep.
This is a very minor possible revision, but that first question, if we're looking at getting something that's like consistently accessible and comparable, we could do a Likert scale for each of those three questions. And maybe the first could just be like, how would you rate your sense of belonging?
Thank you.
In the community?
And would that be, you know, 1 to 10, or would that be one of the other examples that John showed, or just them saying?
It's usually 1 to 5.
There's lots of ways to rank things.
No, it's usually 1 to 5, right?
Sometimes you can also, like, and depending on what we want to do, like, so you could do a 1 to 5, but that allows someone to do a middle ground and be
right.
If you did like a 1 to 4, you've got to kind of pick a side. which, I mean, that can force an unnecessary choice, but it also kind of prevents just blankness.
True.
If you get it down to 2, it could be love or hate. It could
Yeah,
just,
exactly.
No, that means get off my front porch. All of the above.
no, that's a great point, Chris. Yeah, I don't care. I think it would be helpful to have, like you, 4 or 5. I think just something somebody can circle and move on to the next question.
Right.
You don't see very many Likert scales right now that are really effective, that are used for this type of thing, that go up to 10. It's usually 5 is the max, because it does give you that middle ground to say, yeah, it's average. To me, middle means average in a survey, and everything that falls to one side of that you don't like, and everything falls to the other you do. And if you hit the 3, it's not exceptional. It's not good and it's not bad. It's just average.
True. Could you use the same methodology for number 2 and number 3?
That would be the idea.
Yeah.
I was trying to get to the questions before I asked this, but if you're putting a survey out and you decide to use a Likert scale, don't you want to use the Likert scale all the way down so that you have the same consistent survey for all 5 to 10 questions, and put them all on a Likert scale?
That would make sense. And then at the bottom have additional comments.
Yeah,
It depends. It depends on what type of data you're trying to collect, right? I mean, if we're trying to look for what services would you like to see?
no. I meant on anything other than a multiple choice question where you get multiple answers, you would put a Likert scale on, right? So you're always evaluating on that 1 to 5 data. Yeah. And then anything where you have multiple selections, then you're just evaluating the selection. How many times somebody clicked on this button, how many times somebody clicked on that button.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to confuse you, John.
No, and then you could, well, and that would probably be.
Again, we want to keep it simple.
Yeah. No, that works. I'm just driving, so you guys.
Yep.
I like it. It's not an exact science, but you get the data back, and it's metric based, and then use your judgment. But I like what Danny said about action is there's no sense in doing it if you don't plan on making the change afterwards, at least on some kind of scale system, right? Prioritize, but
that's true.
What would you guys say? I mean, as we're the diversity and inclusion committee, what about including a question on how effective do you feel the community or the city is in recognizing, D&I initiatives or D&I policies or something to that effect?
I think that's a great question, because that'll lead you down the direction of what we have to do next.
Right.
And
I think it's straightforward.
My only concern or comment would be that we need to explain what diversity, equity, and inclusion are, because not everybody is going to have that understanding. So I would just say, to make sure that we explain that on the front end, which is kind of why I wrote the mayor's script on my submission.
So let me piggyback off of that and just say, if they don't know what the Diversity and Inclusion Committee is, isn't that a great opportunity? Well, that means that we're not doing enough outreach to them, right? So that gives you a perfect opportunity. I don't even know how to say this nicely, but I'll just put it out there. I'll use my Charlene. It gives you the perfect opportunity to fail a question because you're not good at it, and then get better. And I can tell you that a lot of people don't really understand what we do as a committee or who we are. And so if we put that question on there, we're gonna fail. If we don't give them the information up front, and that's okay. Because we're so new, we haven't done a lot of outreach, so that's okay.
Mhm.
It's a question.
So maybe the mayor can get into the front page of the paper and have a picture of us on there with a, line. Do you know who these people are? I'm just kidding, Mr. Mayor, so don't take me up on it. I'm just being a smart mouth here.
But the other way to look at that is, what do you think the Diversity and Inclusion Committee should be doing? Or, not just are you aware of it, but what do you think we should be doing? Or I'm just trying to think of the right words.
Well, I think there's a difference between asking a question, rating the work of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee,
Right.
Versus asking like, do you feel like, or how would you rate the sense of respect for diversity in our community, or something? Like, those are two very different questions.
Yes, they are.
But going along with this, Charlene, you might be touching on something there, really. I know you had a little bit of a joking attitude there, but prior to this survey going out, we may want to get Kate Day Sager to do an article on the Diversity, Inclusion, Equity and Inclusion Committee, to do an article, and with each, with interviews with each one of us, and here's what we're trying to do, and these people will be coming out requesting information, and maybe that's the way to lead up to it.
Mhm.
And you know why that question's so interesting for me, John? Because in year one, you'll score not so great. But let's say we decide to put the same survey out 24 months from now. It'll be interesting to see if that score fluctuates, right? And that would allow us to look at that data set 24 months later and say, is the committee doing what it was intended to do, right? So the data you retrieve now isn't necessarily, it's just baseline data for something that you're looking for the next time you ask that question.
Yeah. That's with all data. I mean, that's what this is about, right? Is looking for how do the results get better?
Right. So we know we would score low there, but how do we, 24 months later, if we're still scoring that low, then let's reevaluate. But if we're scoring higher, then you know what? We're doing what we're supposed to be doing, right?
True.
I don't want to go too far into the weeds, but for that fourth question, just in survey design, you want to try to avoid a compound question, because if we're like a 5 in diversity but a 2 in equity, like how would I respond? And so if we're kind of like keeping that question simple, I would probably just choose one of those, like either diversity, equity, or an inclusion. And I think, to Charlene's point, having a definition of what we mean by diversity prior to asking this question would be a good thing.
Mhm. I like just narrowing it down to diversity. I think that's a word that most people would understand, especially after we explain what we're doing. Because you're right, I think you can make it too complicated.
I'm by no means a wordsmith, so you guys can help me
You're doing great.
tweak the wording on.
Would it make sense to make all of those like the level of, to make it consistent, like rate your level of belonging, your level of comfort, the level of respect for diversity?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
John, I'm with you. This is where I bow out to Michelle and Chris, Charlie, to really wordsmith and make it sound look good and sound good. I just like to throw ideas at a dartboard and just like have them like wordsmith them for me. Like I can't do it either.
My wife, by all credit, she should earn her doctorate as well because she is my wordsmith. So that is exactly it. She'll be like, she'll say, "What the hell are you trying to say here?" I'll say, "Well, you know," and she's got
I'm with
it up.
I'm with you. I get that all day, every day too, John. Don't worry.
You just have to throw it out there and tweak it.
Okay.
How do those four look to people?
I don't know where I lean on this question, but for that fourth one, are we asking them to like rate how diverse the community is? Or are we asking them to rate the level of respect for diversity?
Good question.
I mean, I thought about that when he erased respect, but then I've been trying to read it over and over to try to put the word respect into the question.
Yeah. And I don't know if we need 5, and like if we're rating like how diverse the community is and then how respectful of diversity. I don't know if we need 5 or not there.
Chris, are you saying that they're one of the same? That you think that the data set would come back the same?
No, I think it would come back different because if you were to ask how diverse is Olean, right? Or you were to ask like, is Olean respectful of diversity, or maybe not respectful, but that's not, but I feel like those are 2 different questions.
Right, I agree.
All right, I see where you're going with that. I like that, Chris. I like that. Like, yeah, you could answer that 2 different ways based on, yeah.
Yeah.
So just tell me how to word that, because I agree with you. And that's where I was originally going, right? The intention was, but I see where both could be important. How do we judge the level of respect for diversity? What is your interpretation of acceptance or respect for diversity in our community?
So one of the things that we do on campus is we just ask like, how diverse, like, and we have like a scale, but how diverse do you feel like the campus is, period. And then I'm trying to remember the wordings for it, but it's something along the lines of not just do you feel like you have a sense of belonging, but do others feel like, do you feel like others feel like they belong? I did not word that well, and I'm looking up something that we've used in the past.
How about, how would you rate the level of our respect for diversity in the community? It's kind of switching it around a little, but I think, you're asking them, but maybe they have a sense of other people in the community, like their neighbors or their friends, may not have a level of respect for that diversity. I don't know. I'm trying to tweak some words here.
I think everyone can relate pretty well to like belonging, comfort, and security, and then diversity is just such a broad topic. Maybe it requires several different questions broken up from those other 3. It's like, how important is diversity to you personally? I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there, but how would you rate respect, and and so on and so forth. You can, because I'm hearing a lot of different questions, but maybe it deserves its own line.
So I don't know if this sounds right, but how would you rate the level of respect towards diversity in our community? Is that what we're aiming for, or is that, I don't know. How would you rate the level of respect?
one of the other possible questions to ask along that same line, Michelle, is like, do you feel, and this might break it down into a couple different questions with one overarching, but do you feel like our community is supportive of people from different racial and ethnic backgrounds, people of different sexual orientations, people of different like physical and mental ability?
Mhm.
So it could be just kind of breaking it down to different
Right.
identities.
What did you say now? How did you, that's the other thing. I don't write very fast.
That's
so-
okay. So I said, like, do you feel the community is respectful or supportive, something along those lines?
Well, is that just yes or no? Do you feel?
On a scale,
Scale.
same scale, from like
Yeah.
1 being not supportive to 5 being very.
I like that too. And like, let's say you're going door to door and you're filling out this survey with people, and it, you know, and you've got all those questions on there, and then at the end you hand them the clipboard and say, are you willing to fill this out? And say, you know, are you, you know, your race, your you know, your diversity, if you're LGBTQ, or your income requirements, and you just let them fill out what they're comfortable with. But tying that to, you know, somebody in those communities versus their answers is going to be important, I think. Like, does that make sense or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob, we touched a lot on comfortability last meeting and really getting down to the community members and putting people in the areas that were comfortable and had some relationships.
Okay.
But I liked how Chris kind of divided it out, you know, so it was more than just that one question.
I like it too because you could feel really good about one area, so about another area, not so good about, you know, another area, and then real good about 3 other areas, right? Gives you the chance to really drill down into that. Good suggestion, Chris.
Yeah, I like the way you're doing it, John.
Chris is sending it to me.
That's okay. You didn't have to share that.
I like how John's doing it too.
Good.
I like it how Chris is doing.
Whatever works.
Our team.
Whatever works.
Hey, Chris, Lisa gave you props.
It's always good to have someone have your back.
I'm gonna ask a crazy question here, and maybe because that's just what I do. Bill, is there anything on this survey that you particularly want to see as the mayor? Is there anything that you really want to know?
You know, this is all good to me. It's all what you know, what's coming out of right now it's all things that we need to know.
But is there anything that we're missing that you're looking at going, I really want to know that from the community that's not on here?
You know, I'd have to give that some thought, you know, and take a look at it. And
I just want to make sure that we're not missing something that you want.
Yeah. And then each one of those A through E, there would be a scale 1 to 5, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we're up to 5 questions. Now, do we still want to include that number 6 from the county just to get a baseline?
I do think that is useful.
Mm-hmm. I do too.
I do think, I mean, I don't know what that list would look like. I think we can work on trying to tweak that, as well as, and I do like what Dan suggested as far as, well, what are some areas you would like to see Olean improve on? So I think those 2 areas need some work. But go ahead.
Can we use well, we know that 6 and 7 need some work because we got to really narrow down the service. But Bob had a good, I don't want it to get lost in translation here. Bob had a good suggestion of some things that they use that he was going to get to us, and I think would be very useful in actually both of them questions. So if we can just, I mean, we know we got to work on them 2 questions right there. We agree that they need to be there, but we know we got to work on them. So
that also adds kind of a positive spin on it. It's fun to fill out stuff like that. And, you know, I mean, that's the whole community comes together with public spaces, or at least, you know, that's kind of our philosophy. And everyone wants to have a hand in it too. So those are always the nice positive spin.
In question 5, would we want to include something like religion?
Like faith-based or faith orientation, or because we have an awful lot of churches in Olean, and you know, I think we really don't want to leave that out.
well, I would caution you that you're up to 6 different Likert scales in question number 5, right?
Yeah.
So if we're talking about taking a survey down to 10 questions, and inside one question, you have 6 different scales, right? Are we now going to cut back on the questions from 10 to whatever? Because if that list keeps growing, you know, you're gonna, by default, you got a survey that's 25 questions.
Yeah. Well, maybe we only have a couple more questions, you know, after Bob shares some of the information he has, and then the resources, we stop there. Because down the road, we could always do another survey if we feel that we've left, you know, somebody or something out.
I mean, before we publish it, we can go back through and clean some
Right.
out too. You know, we can whittle away if we need to.
There was a question at the beginning that I thought we agreed to have in there, and I can't remember what it was, and maybe it's in there. But I think me and you were talking about it, John, and so it's probably in there. But I'd have to go back and watch it and just make sure that it's in there, because I know we agreed to that.
Is that the one that said, do you have a sense of security?
What are all areas, demographics in our community being served? What are everyone's needs? What do you want to see in our community? How do we get better? How comfortable? I mean, I jotted some of those thoughts down when we were talking earlier.
No, I'm sorry. It was the age, race, ethnicity thing. And I think Bob had a great idea of handing somebody that at the end and allowing them to fill out what they were comfortable with.
And I've got here that we can include the standard demographics. If you feel comfortable, please answer. So yeah, I do think that it is, it's beneficial, right, to include that as well.
Yeah, I want to get it, but I just wanted to make sure that we didn't lose that in translation. Okay, it's there. I'm good, John.
Okay.
Well, there is the security one. It's in there.
Just for clarity, I believe where you have include questions 6 from Cat County Survey, that's actually Cattaraugus Community Action Survey.
Oh, okay, thank you. Is that a separate, that's, is that Chris Stanley's group?
No, that's they're out of Salamanca.
Yeah.
Very big organization. Tina Zerbian is their executive director.
Oh, okay. Are they a county funded organization?
To some extent.
Okay.
I believe they do get, but they're a not-for-profit.
Okay.
And they do all kinds of wonderful things throughout Cattaraugus County. They even have a homeless shelter in Salamanca. They're based out of there. They have many services that they provide.
So what I'm going to do in the meantime, as I know our time is running low here tonight, is I'm going to just email all of this right here to everyone in the group.
Mhm. Yeah, and we could all look it over and maybe ask other, some folks that we know to read it over and give us some feedback.
Here's a quick question. When I send something to the Equity and Inclusion Committee, does everybody receive that, or do I need to put everybody's name in separately? Did we ever determine that?
I think,
What I do when I want to share, I send it to Bill. And then I think coming out of his, the basic site, I think we share some things because I've shared before and it hasn't gotten to everybody. So you might want to go through Bill.
okay, did everybody get the email from Gary Harvey today?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
'cause he sent it to the group.
Okay.
But that was a reply to your email.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Yep. Yeah,
Yeah. So I would go through Bill.
Yeah, because I know that there's been people in the group who said stuff out and it didn't get to everybody. Not me, but I just know that we've talked about this before.
You know what I'm wondering? I'm wondering, I'm going to send this to you guys and you can tell me if it pings in your email. I'm wondering if it comes from one of our city accounts. It works, but if you guys try to use it from an external account, maybe it
Right.
doesn't.
That's what
Yeah,
I
we
think.
discussed that before.
Because I put everybody's email address into my address book and sent it that way. That's how I was able to do it. But I think if it comes from you, Linda, or Bill,
Right.
I think we all can get it because it's coming from the city
That's what I'm wondering.
email.
We'll
Right.
send it out. We'll figure it out. Send it out right now.
I just sent it to you, so you can let me know if it
Okay,
pings.
I received it.
Well,
yeah, we would, I did too,
Linda,
John.
you would.
Yeah,
I received it as well.
Okay,
Okay, Charlene, did you get it?
Got it.
okay. All right.
Chris, did you get it?
I did.
Okay.
So Bob, maybe you could kind of come up with some of those examples
Got it.
Okay, good.
for your survey that you did, that you talked about. Those
Yeah,
type-
I've got a specific one that I'm thinking of that's kind of broad in it. Like the last question is like, if you had $25,000, what would you do? You know, it's open-ended, and then the other ones are like kind of prioritizing from 1 to 4, something along those lines. So it's quick, it's easy.
Now with my city hat on, I would say I would fix more sidewalks. So not everybody would come from the same, mindset. But I think that would be great to see. Okay, so wrapping up, everybody has a copy of John's, and great job, John, by the way.
I'm just the secretary. It's not mine, it's our.
Okay, our survey. And then Bob, can you send us those examples?
Yeah, tomorrow morning I'll send it out as soon as I get in my email.
Okay, so what we can do is just go through it and tweak it, or if we want to change the wording, and then maybe in 2 weeks, try to get to a point where we finalize it and go from there.
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay. So folks, sorry for keeping you too long, but I'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right.
Great
Okay,
night.
night, everyone.
Good night,
Good night.
everybody.
Enjoy your vacations.
Safe
everybody.
travels, safe travels, those of you who are traveling, so.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.